He has chosen a life of drugs and intimidation and has never been held accountable for his actions.
You did, Dirk.
I didn't do anything.
Well, that's what you say.
The grim sleeper, Lonnie Franklin, 63 years old and a former garbage collector, was impassive as he was sentenced for killing a teenager and 9 women in South Los Angeles between 1985 and 2007. What you've done is not just justifiable under the laws of God or laws of man, Superior Court Judge Kathleen Kennedy told him as the victims' relatives looked on, some in tears. The judge read the names of the 10 victims, pausing each time to say, "You shall suffer the death penalty."
First-degree Deborah Jackson is alleged in count 1 in the special circumstance of multiple. It is the judgment and sentence of this court that you shall suffer the death penalty.
The nickname Grim Sleeper was coined due to an apparent 13-year break in the slayings, but authorities now believe Franklin was never inactive. During the penalty phase of his trial, prosecutors linked him to 5 additional murders. Detectives suspect he may have killed at least 25 women, many of whom were drug addicts or prostitutes from poor, marginalized neighborhoods. Community members complained that it took police 2 decades to link the cases to a single killer. Most victims were shot at close range. 2 were strangled, and 2 were both strangled and shot. The case concluded with several death sentences. Robert Martinez, a San Antonio man, is set to be sentenced at the State District Court after being found guilty of the 2015 shooting and killing of a man whose body was discovered in a Hell's Gate drainage ditch on San Antonio's west side. His sentencing was discussed for about 90 minutes by the jury. Martinez faced a 5 to 99-year sentence for the murder of Stephen Cerna. Martinez murdered Stephen Cerna on February 20th, 2015, after luring him with the idea of earning money for drugs. He then took him to Hell's Gate, a west side drainage ditch, and shot him 4 times. In June 2017, the San Antonio Police Department arrested and charged Martinez after he was reported bragging about killing Cerna more than 2 years after the crime. According to the prosecutor, Martinez killed Cerna because he believed the victim's family was involved in the murder of a friend. The prosecution relied heavily on Martinez's uncle Larry Isaac, who stated that his nephew confessed to him that he was Cerna's killer. Isaac agreed to testify against Robert in return for a reduction in his prison term for kidnapping.
On the phone, I was like, why? He's like, because he came, he's in the dirt or something like that.
He said what?
He's in the dirt. I just didn't want to hear that he did it. I pretty much was trying to get the answer that Chasm did it. But he denied it and said he did.
Leland McRae, the defense counsel, argued that Larry Isaac wasn't the right person to testify against Robert, considering his criminal record, and suggested that the police arrested the wrong person.
This was not a retaliatory strike. There's no evidence of that. Not one drop of evidence other than from Larry Isaac, who himself does not know.
The prosecutors agreed that while Isaac might not be the ideal witness for the case, they believe he is telling the truth.
We all should stand for the truth, no matter who tells it. He knew he had information, and he wanted to use it to help himself, but he knew he had credible information.
Robert Martinez denied committing the crime and told the panel that he was innocent of Cerna's murder. He was convicted of murder by the jury, and Judge Melissa Skinner sentenced him to a 99-year prison term with parole eligibility set for 20 years from the day of his sentencing. After hearing Judge Melissa's verdict, Martinez showed no remorse, maintaining a straight face throughout the sentencing. This lack of emotion during a court hearing is not uncommon among convicts. Sean Corbally, a man from central Indiana with 2 previous rape convictions, was found guilty of sexually assaulting a Greenwood mother at knife point while her daughter slept nearby. Corbally had been released from jail in February 2010 after serving less than 12 years of a 25-year sentence for a rape conviction in September 2000. The Indiana Department of Corrections officials stated that Corbally's sentence was reduced due to his excellent behavior, educational credits, and participation in substance addiction rehabilitation. After his release, Sean Corbally was labeled a sexually violent predator and placed on 5 years probation. While on probation, he broke into the home of a Greenwood mother of 2 in July 2012 through an unlocked patio door. He wielded a dull knife, threatened to kill her daughter and son if she resisted him, and sexually assaulted her. Corbally fled the scene but was arrested less than a week later for a different sexual assault, although he was freed due to lack of evidence. However, DNA evidence discovered at the Greenwood crime scene led to his rearrest. The 35-year-old woman submitted a letter to the jury in court expressing her feelings about Corbally. Judge K. Mark Lloyd of Johnson Circuit Court characterized the case as malicious and emphasized that the evidence against Sean Corbally was overwhelming. Corbally was convicted of rape, unlawful confinement, deviant criminal behavior, and burglary resulting in bodily harm. The jury reached a verdict of sexual assault after a 3-day trial that concluded on February 28, 2013. He was sentenced to 270 years in prison. Corbally displayed no sign of remorse after the verdict was delivered, maintaining his innocence. He was observed speaking to the police before eventually smiling as he was escorted out of the court premises. At the Oklahoma County Courthouse, there was a hearing for 19-year-old Israel Pointer, who faced allegations of robbery with a firearm and possession of a firearm. Pointer failed to appear 3 days before this hearing, but eventually showed up. He left the court just before the judge could withdraw his release. As Pointer rushed out of the courtroom, he evaded 2 deputy guards and slipped out of one officer's grasp. Down the hall, 2 sheriff's deputies were unaware that their shift would begin with the pursuit of a convict. Shortly after, in a cramped corridor, the deputies collide with the evading defendant, but Pointer manages to break free once more. It seems like Pointer might have a chance to escape until he mistakenly enters a corridor where David Prater, the chief prosecutor for the county, is about to cross paths with him. There's no deputy in the area for Prater to alert for help when he sees Pointer coming his way. Prater quickly unbuttons his suit jacket and immediately springs into action. As an alternative to a full contact tackle, the lawyer grabs Pointer's arm and continues to hold on. With the assistance of another lawyer, Prater tries to restrain him by holding onto his arm, leading to Pointer pleading guilty to resisting arrest. Israel Pointer was sentenced to 6 months in the county jail. He also admitted guilt to the initial charges of armed robbery and handgun possession, resulting in a 3-year jail term. This is Vincent DeLorenzo, a former priest who sexually assaulted a boy.
Former Genesee County priest sentenced to a year in jail and probation for a child decades ago.
Vincent DeLorenzo, 84, previously residing in Flint, was sentenced on Tuesday to 1 year in the Genesee County Jail with credit for the 39 days he had already served. Additionally, he was placed on 5 years of probation. On April 25th, DeLorenzo pleaded guilty to sexually assaulting a boy. The incident took place after he officiated a service for a deceased family member of the boy back in 1987, as stated by the Michigan Attorney General's office. In the plea deal, DeLorenzo had some charges dismissed. These charges were about a different assault at a closed school in Burton from 1995 to 2000. The Attorney General's office says DeLorenzo will need to register as a sex offender, get counseling, and pay restitution. In the Jefferson County Circuit Court in Louisville, Kentucky, Ryaton Woodford, a 29-year-old former convict, is having a hearing to determine if his probation should be revoked. He is charged with breaking the terms of his probation related to drug and firearm offenses. Woodford's fiancée sits nearby. Judge Barry Willett keeps the camera focused on the empty witness chair while delivering his decision after hearing from the detective.
And if you know, was Mr. Woodford at the time a convicted felon?
Yes, he was.
Woodford was charged with possession of narcotics and firearms. After he was sentenced, Woodford attempted to escape but was caught. His fiancée was heard begging him to stop trying to escape.
Probation revoked in its entirety. Mr. Woodford, I'm going to send you to serve 5 years. Good luck to you.
Please, no.
No, ma'am. Lock the door back there.
Deputies caught Mr. Woodford after he tried and failed to run away. He is now in jail. This is Robert McWilliams, a former priest who was sentenced to life in prison for sexual exploitation.
All the cases that have ever come before her, she'd never ever seen one as egregious or as deserving.
In November 2021, the trial of Cleveland priest Robert McWilliams ended in Ohio courts. Judge Sarah Leoy sentenced McWilliams to life in prison after he was found guilty. His crimes involved both online and in person. During the sentencing, 3 survivors and their families were present in the courtroom. Unfortunately, due to his online behavior, the exact number of people affected by McWilliams is currently unknown. Tragically, in February 2022, McWilliams passed away while in Allenwood Federal Prison in Pennsylvania. His case highlights the troubling issue of individuals in positions of power exploiting their roles. Robert McWilliams was a seminarian at St. Helens Catholic Church in Newberry Township. In 2017, he was ordained as a priest under the Roman Catholic Diocese of Cleveland. The district assigned him to St. Joseph Catholic Church in Strongsville, Ohio, where he served as the priest of Saints Joseph and John School. Over 3 years, McWilliams targeted numerous minors, many of whom knew him personally from church and school. In 2019, 2 families from St. Helens Catholic Church complained against McWilliams. They claimed he engaged in inappropriate online behavior with their sons. After these allegations surfaced, an investigation was launched. The Ohio Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force obtained a warrant to search McWilliams' living space and workplace. They confiscated his electronic devices and arrested him. During the investigation, inappropriate material was discovered on his devices. Investigators found evidence of misconduct. He faced charges in court, pleaded guilty, and received a sentence. However, he passed away shortly after being transferred to another facility. At the Oklahoma County Courthouse, we find ourselves at a hearing on narcotics possession charges here in Oklahoma City. A 30-year-old man named David Knight, wearing a brown jacket, is about to enter the courtroom. Knight is unaware that there's a warrant out for his arrest. At the last moment, he slips past the deputies and exits the courthouse as the elevator doors open. Upon reaching the ground floor, Knight swiftly exits the elevator, takes a moment to gather himself, and then hurries off in search of freedom. Although he makes some progress initially, the toughest challenge is overcoming the final security checkpoint and a determined deputy. With determination, Knight begins a frantic sprint for freedom, darting out the door and onto the street. The officer follows closely behind, and just out of view, the deputy wins the battle, tackling Knight to the ground in front of curious onlookers. After being brought into custody, Knight faces charges of obstructing an officer. He pleads guilty and receives a sentence of 1 year with the possibility of suspension, meaning he won't go to jail if he complies with probation terms. Meet David E. Taylor, a 42-year-old man. On camera, he may appear like an ordinary person, but to the followers of his multi-million-dollar mega church, he is respected as someone extraordinarily holy and deeply connected to God.
The name of the apostle?
Yes.
David Taylor claims to have had a personal visit from Jesus Christ and now acts as a spiritual mentor to others through his nonprofit organization, Joshua Media Ministries International. Taylor is currently being questioned in a divorce case involving one of his volunteers, a woman who generously donated over $1 million to his ministry. As part of the divorce proceedings, lawyers are seeking information about how the ministry used the donated money.
November 29th, 2013, JMMI paid over $6,000 to Louis Vuitton.
Yes.
What would that be for?
Well, this is for clothes concerning my...
Tensions escalate as Taylor faces questions about the ministry's luxury cars. The intensity grows as he is interrogated about a $2.8 million mansion listed by the ministry as a residential center. During the questioning, the lawyer catches Taylor referring to the property as a home.
A place that the ministry owns. Well, not own, we're in the process of buying that.
All right, so where does the number $2,844,000 come from on your asset and liability?
While Taylor's deposition initially stemmed from a divorce case, it later had far-reaching consequences. The over 3-hour video was posted online, prompting criticism against Taylor and his ministry. Allegations of misused funds circulated widely on the internet. Despite negative publicity, David E. Taylor remains steadfast in his global commitment to spreading his gospel. Meet Bobby Johnson, wrongly convicted in July 2007 of the murder of 70-year-old Herbert Fields in New Haven, Connecticut on August 1st, 2006. Following extensive police questioning on September 15, 2006, Johnson made an audio-taped confession. However, Johnson later recanted the confession, claiming it was forced. To avoid a potentially harsher sentence, Johnson entered a guilty plea and was sentenced to 38 years in prison.
It's crazy. I'm still trying to grasp everything now. It's crazy. Oh, man.
Kwame Wells Jordan, a co-defendant of Johnson, was a minor at the time of the crime. Johnson's state petition for relief was denied on October 7, 2013, and he was found not guilty after a jury trial.
For the first time right now, what is that right to be able to see how someone broke and something like wow.
Following the denial, the Connecticut Innocence Project reopened its investigation into Johnson's case in 2010. They uncovered new evidence connecting 2 additional men to the crime. This evidence included the recovery of the murder weapon from one of the men and a conclusive match between the other man's palm print and the victim's car.
For the first time right now, what is that right to be able to see how someone broke and something like wow.
New Haven State's attorney Michael Dearington filed a motion to set aside Johnson's conviction based on the new evidence, which excluded Johnson as one of the perpetrators. This motion was granted on September 4, 2015. After serving 9 years in prison, Johnson was instantly freed. This is Diego Jose Zayas Martinez. He's facing charges of making terroristic threats and stabbing a man. Recently, he appeared in court for his bond hearing, during which his bail was set at $100,000. As a deputy escorted him to the bus, you could see Martinez. Like other defendants, he wears handcuffs, but his feet are not restrained. Taking advantage of this, he decides to make a run for it. Zayas Martinez seizes an opportunity to escape, slipping away just beyond the reach of the second deputy. Immediately, officers give chase, but one of them decides to stay with the other prisoners. Zayas Martinez reaches the parking lot with a deputy in pursuit, trying to close the gap. Despite the deputy's efforts to intercept him, Zayas Martinez stays one step ahead. He jumps over a fence, creating the illusion that he might have a chance to escape for good. However, his freedom is short-lived. Later that day, a concerned citizen informs a sheriff's deputy that the man they are searching for is hiding under her house. As a result, Zayas Martinez is captured and taken back to the courthouse. In light of his escape attempt, his original bond is increased to $500,000, and he now faces an additional charge of third-degree escape. Michael Carneal was a freshman in 1997 when he fired a stolen pistol at a before-school prayer group in the lobby of Heath High School near Paducah.
Can you see and hear us okay? I entered my vote on September the 20th as well as a serve-out. It will remain the same.
He was sentenced to life with the opportunity for parole after 25 years, the maximum allowed at the time for someone his age. On December 1st, 1997, Carneal wrapped a shotgun and a rifle in a blanket and took them to school, passing them off as an art project he was working on. When he arrived, he inserted earplugs and took the pistol out of his bag. He fired 10 rounds in rapid succession at a youth group of students. 3 girls later died, and 5 students were wounded. Carneal dropped the gun voluntarily. After the shooting, he placed his pistol on the ground and surrendered to the school principal. He was reported to have said, "Kill me, please? I can't believe I did that." In an interview, Carneal expressed remorse for his actions and acknowledged that he was only thinking of himself at the time.
I know now that that's not something that I should do, and I'm able to not do it and rationalize.
He stated that there was no simple answer for why he lashed out, but attributed it to suffering from delusions and paranoia. Carneal mentioned that the therapy and medication he received in prison had stabilized his mental health. However, on September 26, 2022, the parole board unanimously denied Carneal's bid for parole. He was ordered to serve out his sentence, meaning he would remain in prison for the rest of his life. This is 21-year-old Robert Peterson, the man wearing a fur cap. He's the one recording this footage as he enters the Kootenai County Courthouse in Idaho. Peterson is attending a hearing for a minor traffic infraction, where he was caught riding his bicycle at night without a light. However, right from the moment he enters the courthouse, it becomes evident that this won't be a routine security check.
It's clearly posted on the entrance building.
What, clearly posted that I have to forfeit my right to be free from unreasonable search and seizure?
To be precise, Peterson identifies himself as a sovereign citizen, asserting that he is a free man with certain rights and privileges. Instead of escalating the situation, one of the bailiffs chooses to go along with Peterson's behavior and ideas. Once he passes through security, Peterson sits at the back of the courtroom and continues recording the events. The bailiffs then make the decision to evacuate the courtroom and directly question Peterson. As evident, this bailiff maintains his sense of humor amidst the situation.
I'm a man.
You're human?
I'm a man, yes.
Can I see your Idaho state license?
No, I don't have one.
You don't have one?
My person does, but I don't.
After seemingly diffusing the situation, the bailiffs guide everyone back into the courtroom, except for one person. When Peterson refuses to step back, Chief Bailiff Pete Barnes fires his taser.
Stop, please. I'm not doing anything wrong. Hey, you know what? You guys are really overstepping your bounds right now.
The answer to that question is that Peterson was charged with 3 counts of battery and 1 count of contempt of court. Later, he entered an offered plea, which means he didn't admit guilt, but acknowledged there was enough evidence to convict him potentially. As part of the plea deal, jail time was waived, and he was ordered to pay a fine for his initial charge of riding a bike at night without a light. Listen to the interview with a man discussing a missing college student. You might initially think he is genuinely distressed about his neighbor's disappearance, someone he considered a friend. However, things are not as they seem, and this man is not as good of an actor as he believes himself to be.
Gonna be a missing person. Lauren Giddings.
Investigators' desperate search for answers.
You used to watch her come in and out of her apartment, didn't you?
No.
Now you're lying.
Leads to the interrogation of a suspect that just won't break.
How can you remember a statute and you can't remember what you did 2 days ago?
This is the case of Lauren Giddings, a 27-year-old woman from Maryland who went to Georgia to attend law school at Mercer University. Lauren was, by many people's definition, the full package. She was beautiful and kind, as well as very intelligent and driven. She had big plans for her future and was willing to work hard to achieve them. Her whole family was very proud of her.
Going to college was huge. No one in our family had ever been to college.
In June of 2011, all of Lauren's hard work was about to pay off. She had completed her studies and only needed to take the bar exam. Lauren lived in an apartment right next to the university, a convenient location that was also home to several other graduate students she knew. One of these fellow graduates was Stephen McDaniel, who lived across from Lauren. They talked occasionally, and he had once asked her out, but she declined because she had a boyfriend. Leading up to June 30th, 2011, Lauren told everyone she would focus entirely on studying for the weekend bar exam. When the weekend passed, and no one had heard from her, those close to her grew worried. Lauren was close to her family and always checked in, but they thought she might be busy studying. However, they soon discovered that none of her school friends had seen or heard from her either, which was unusual. In fact, one friend called the cops after visiting Lauren's apartment and getting no response. The police checked the scene but found no signs of a break-in, so they left. As hours passed with no word from Lauren, her friends grew increasingly worried and decided to contact her sister Caitlin to express their concerns.
Wednesday, one of her friends called me and asked me if I had talked to Lauren, because she said I called, her phone was dead. So of course I immediately picked up the phone and called, and her phone was dead. And I did think that was weird.
Caitlin called everyone she could think of who might know Lauren's whereabouts but had no luck.
Called her boyfriend. I had called friends in Atlanta, friends here, called hospitals in the area.
Caitlin knew of a secret key her sister had hidden, so she gave one of Lauren's friends permission to use it to enter the apartment and check things out. The friend did so and quickly realized that everything Lauren would have taken with her, including her wallet and school ID, was still there. To Lauren's friends and family, this confirmed that something was terribly wrong.
The morning that we went up there, we were able to gain access to her apartment. Her car was there, her keys were there at the apartment, her pocketbook was there, her cell phone was there, her laptop was there.
Lauren was officially reported missing. Law enforcement began searching for her and asking neighbors if they had seen or heard from her. One of the first people interviewed by the local news was Stephen McDaniel. Since he had known Lauren for a while and lived right across the street, it made sense that he might have helpful information. He seemed completely willing to assist and do the interview.
The only thing we can think is that maybe she went out running and someone snapped.
Another person law enforcement was interested in talking to from the beginning was David Whitmore, one of Lauren's classmates who also lived nearby.
You were in the graduating class with Lauren,
Right.
Giddings, and you knew her, right?
Yeah.
And y'all live in the same apartment complex.
Mm-hmm. She and I would end up together a lot, simply because of we were going to the same spot after class.
They also interviewed all of Lauren's closest friends on campus.
Apartment, or did you know where she hides the key?
I knew where she hides the key.
And did you go inside her apartment?
Yes, last night.
And did everything appear to be undisturbed last night?
Yes.
There were no signs of forced entry into Lauren's apartment, indicating that if someone had taken her, it had to be someone she knew and let in, or someone who had their own key.
I'm asking you for your help.
Yes, sir.
This is your girlfriend.
I understand.
Okay. Because we can't find her. There's people telling me this relationship is on the rocks or not a good relationship.
David acknowledged that his relationship with Lauren had its problems, but he insisted he had never been violent or hurt her. The cops wouldn't overlook anyone as a potential person of interest, including Stephen McDaniel, who agreed to come into the local station for a more in-depth interview.
He's her next door neighbor who lives in apartment 4. Can I get your last name?
McDaniel. Stephen McDaniel.
When was the last time you think you seen Lauren?
It was either last week or the week before that. I was coming back from bar prep and I was driving back and I saw her going out to run.
He and Lauren were both officers in the same social group, which was an organization through the law school.
Stephen insisted that he had no idea where Lauren could be and had already shared all his information with the cops.
That you could tell me today or add to your statement that could help me locate Lauren?
I can't think of anything. I mean, we looked around to see if there was a note or if there was anything, but there was just nothing that we could find to try and figure out where she was.
Law enforcement had already searched Lauren's apartment for clues. Now, it was time to look outside and around the building. Unfortunately, they didn't have to look far to make an incredibly disturbing discovery.
Looking a little closer around outside and discovered the trash bag that was in one of the dumpsters, and once they were able to open the bag and look in it, discovered her body.
They didn't find Lauren's entire body.
Her torso, there was no limbs attached, and of course her head was missing as well.
When this discovery was made, many people, including the press, gathered around Lauren's apartment complex, and the tragic news spread quickly.
Just all there, and my uncle walked over, he lives across the street, and was kind of standing in the corner, and he said, well, did you check the news? And we're like, no. And what is it? What is it? Well, did you check? And my aunt was like, you need to just tell us what you're talking about. And he said they found a body.
Because the head was missing, the cops couldn't immediately confirm that the torso belonged to Lauren. However, given that it was found in the dumpster outside her apartment and she was the only person known to be missing in the area, it seemed highly likely that it was hers.
I doubt that was her body, but that was my mom's first, are you sure it's her? Like, could it be,
It was soon confirmed that the body belonged to Lauren. However, questions remained about who had done this and where the rest of her remains were. Meanwhile, the crime scene became more intense as law enforcement searched for additional evidence that Lauren's killer might have tried to dispose of. One intriguing detail about the trash can where Lauren's body was found was that it was supposed to have been emptied that morning by a trash truck, which happened to be running late. This delay was fortunate for law enforcement, allowing them to check the other trash cans nearby for additional evidence. At the crime scene, Stephen McDaniel chatted with reporters about the search for Lauren, unaware that law enforcement had just made another startling discovery. Watch this clip closely to see Stephen's demeanor change completely when the reporter informs him there has been an update in the case.
The enemies she might have had, somebody that might want to hurt her.
No,
We don't know where she is.
The reporter did not realize that Stephen was unaware the body had been found in the trash can.
In the parking lot area, I know they've been doing a lot of, I think that's where they had recovered the body or whatever they recovered from there.
Body?
Had you heard anything? Had you seen anything there? Had you seen anything there? I mean, we don't know if this is the same person. You know what I mean? Like, they took out a body there earlier. We don't know if it's the same person or not. So that's how we're trying to ask people if they know who lived there. Are you okay, sir?
I think I need to sit down.
Okay.
But Stephen knew the body was Lauren's and not someone else's. At that moment, he also realized he was in serious trouble. Suddenly, he switched gears, crying, and putting on an elaborate performance, claiming he wished he could do more to protect Lauren.
I just heard something. Maybe I could have helped.
Stephen's behavior in that interview caught much attention, including from law enforcement, who found it very suspicious. They were already beginning to investigate Stephen more thoroughly and had many questions for him. Stephen agreed to come into the station for an interview, but it quickly became clear that his chatty demeanor had completely changed. He now responded using as few words as possible.
You know about this girl right here? You know her?
Yes.
Does she live next door to you?
Yes.
When's the last time you seen her?
2 or 3.
All of a sudden, Stephen became eerily quiet and emotionless. This abrupt shift in personality was obvious and very suspicious.
Tell me what happened, brother.
I don't know.
Do you even care that no one can find her?
Yes.
Earlier today, me and you sit here and talk normal. What's going on with you now? Why are you acting like this?
I don't understand.
The kind of blank stare, very short answers.
Others informed the cops that Stephen's new behavior was not typical for him, adding to the suspicion.
You're so talkative, buddy, that you always so friendly. You stop in and say hello, and you talk. Why is it that everything that we get from you is yes, no, or I don't know?
I don't know.
So, not only had Stephen suddenly clammed up, but he also refused to give the cops permission to search his apartment. If he truly had nothing to do with Lauren's disappearance, one would expect him to have no issue with his apartment being searched.
Someone took her.
How do you think somebody would take her? If somebody did take her.
When she was running.
The more the cops looked into Stephen, the more they realized he was a loner. He spent most of his time at home alone, playing video games. He rarely bathed and had never been in a relationship. The cops believed Stephen had been attracted to Lauren and had been watching her, possibly obsessing over her for a long time. They also knew Stephen had previously been rejected by Lauren.
How you like to look at porn on the internet? You expressed to me that you're a virgin, correct?
Yes.
What happened to Lauren?
I don't know.
You like her, don't you?
She's my friend.
Did you ever think about having sex with her?
No.
No, there was a body found in the trash can next to the apartments.
Yes.
Who would do something to somebody and throw them in a trash can?
I don't know.
The cops suspected that if Stephen killed Lauren and disposed of her body in the trash, he likely assumed it would be picked up before anyone noticed. It seemed he hadn't considered the possibility that the cops would find it first and question him about it. Consequently, he had no lie or story prepared to give them.
There was a body found in the trash can next to the apartments.
Yes.
Who would do something to somebody and throw them in a trash can?
I don't know.
When the cops finally got permission to search Stephen's apartment, they found several interesting items, including various firearms, a samurai sword, and multiple blades.
What do you need all these weapons for?
To have.
Why? There's a reason why. Were you molested as a child?
It's time to turn up the heat on Stephen McDaniel. The cops believe he is Lauren's killer, but they still need concrete evidence to prove it.
I ain't making those, you know, because you got your sorry ass on the news and told everybody.
Why would you not be honest with me?
I am being honest.
Stephen, it just doesn't feel.
What will it take to get Stephen to break?
Tell her family.
I don't know.
That's what you want me to tell her mother and her father, is that you don't know.
I don't know.
Stephen might not be revealing anything with his words, but the cops are slowly building a case against him through other means.
You know, like you've been cleaning up, like you've been using cleaner to clean up. You've been using some kind of cleaner to clean up your apartment, hadn't you?
No.
Law enforcement has already found bottles of bleach and other cleaning products in Stephen's apartment, but they are still pushing for a confession. They hope to achieve this by making him think about Lauren's mother and how desperately she wants answers about what happened to her daughter.
Not that you're sorry that she's missing, I thought you've been trying to help me all day find her, but you just wanted me to tell her I don't know.
I don't know.
Are you
where
a
she
sorry
is.
piece of that you want me to tell?
Meanwhile, as other officers continued searching Stephen's apartment, they found camera footage on a memory card, proving he had been secretly photographing Lauren. But that wasn't all. Stephen had attempted to scrub all evidence from his apartment, but detectives could still find traces with the right light. Upon closer inspection of Stephen's bathtub, investigators found numerous tiny cuts and scratches on the enamel. They believed this was where the dismemberment had taken place, likely caused by a sharp tool, possibly a hacksaw. Law enforcement later found a hacksaw in the apartment complex's maintenance shed. The shed was usually kept locked, but inside Stephen's apartment, they found a copy of the key. The hacksaw was tested and found to have trace amounts of Lauren's blood and DNA on it. Cops traced the hacksaw back to Stephen after finding a receipt for it in his trash. They also obtained Walmart surveillance footage showing Stephen making the purchase. At this point, it didn't matter if Stephen confessed. They had the evidence needed to arrest him.
Did dirt.
I didn't do anything.
Well, that's what you say.
Stephen was arrested and charged with Lauren's murder. Detectives determined that he had obtained a key to Lauren's apartment, which allowed him to enter and kill her. He then took her back to his own apartment where he dismembered her. Stephen was later offered a plea deal. As part of the plea deal, Stephen had to explain exactly what he did to Lauren in court. He admitted that he entered Lauren's apartment in the middle of the night, and although he was wearing a mask, she immediately recognized him and told him to get out. Tragically, he took her life. Stephen's motivation included knowing Lauren was finishing school and would soon be moving out, which meant he couldn't stalk her anymore. He decided this was his last chance to act. Stephen was ultimately convicted and sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 30 years. In March 2022, he filed a complaint against his former attorney and tried to have his conviction overturned, but for now, he remains behind bars. Although he was given the possibility of parole, many people hope that the man who confessed to the sickening murder and dismemberment of this young woman will never be free again. Will never be free again. Alan Garcia was driving on Interstate 40 with his daughter Lily and his son Isaac sitting in the back of his pickup truck. They were on their way home from school. According to Alan, he attempted to exit the highway to go to the grocery store, but a car cut him off and blocked him. Alan told the police that he got angry and called the other driver an idiot. The other driver pulled alongside Alan, rolled down his window, and shouted something at Garcia, but he couldn't understand what was said. At that point, Alan sped up to get away from the driver, but as he did, he heard 2 gunshots striking his car, followed by Isaac's voice shouting, "She's bleeding!" The other car was still beside Alan when he heard a 3rd gunshot, and then one last shot before the car sped away.
See her devastated dad sitting on the road beside his truck as cops try to comfort him.
Unfortunately, not long after, Lily was declared dead at the hospital.
That this happened to my daughter. I'm supposed to lay my life down for my kids, not the other way around.
So, who was the driver who pulled a gun so easily and destroyed the Garcia family?
On an anonymous tip, cops arrested 32-year-old Tony Torres. According to police, he has confessed to shooting Lily.
Torres was a man who, between 2006 and 2014, had been arrested for 4 violent felonies, but had not been convicted in any of them. Unfortunately, the following year, he crossed paths with the Garcias. While Torres was in prison, the Garcias, along with the rest of the country, were mourning little Lily.
Turned out for a number of vigils for Lily, even raising more than $80,000 on a GoFundMe account.
Lily was characterized as a vibrant girl who was always laughing. At one of her vigils, about 300 mourners gathered at the Nativity of the Blessed Virgin Mary Catholic Church in Albuquerque. Some wore t-shirts with her laughing face, while others had the message, "Justice for Lily." The small white coffin was surrounded by people who loved her and by strangers who came to show their support. Grief, anger, and despair filled the atmosphere. Police Chief Gordon Eden addressed the crowd, saying, "I would ask that your anger not turn into hate, but your anger turn into action."
Her, your heart just melts. She was just amazing. She was so bright. She loved to dance. She loved to...
While there will never be true comfort for the Garcias, they did see Torres instantly convicted. Veronica Garcia, speaking to Inside Edition, could not hide her anger.
Took my baby girl. And you know what? I'm going to make sure that he sees her face every single day. And I'm going to make sure that he suffers. And I'm going to make sure that he's put away for the rest of his life.
Now, one wonders what such a man had to say for himself. Torres claimed that it was a total accident, stating that he didn't even look and only pointed and shot because he feared for his life, nearly wrecking twice. However, as he continued talking, his story changed, and he realized there would be consequences. Torres's lawyer presumably knew the jury wouldn't buy that defensive approach.
Prison is a living hell. I would have known what I know now about that day, I wouldn't have swerved. My daughter's life was worth more than 20 cents, cost of a 9mm bullet, and 16 years.
By sticking to that story, Torres risked a first-degree murder conviction and a life sentence. Upon entering the courtroom, just before the judge announced his conviction, the air was filled with the sound of sobbing and shackles, reflecting the agony of the moment. Torres pleaded guilty. He signed the plea deal, and the judge sentenced him to 16 years in the Department of Corrections for second-degree murder and a gun charge. Upon hearing his sentence, Alan Garcia stated,
Torres has done nothing but caused harm and havoc with anyone that he has come into contact with, dating back to 2005. He has chosen a life of drugs and intimidation and has never been held accountable for his actions.
When it was her turn, Veronica Garcia expressed herself.
Sorry for taking the life of Louie. That was never my intention. I thought I was gonna be the next road rage.
As for Torres, he was nothing but apologetic.
Now, no time in prison is enough for the precious life that was taken.
Ultimately, after the trial, Veronica Garcia issued one last statement.
Remember Lily's spirit.
Big, beautiful smile from ear to ear and big, beautiful brown eyes.
Just her laugh. She always had a laugh.
How do you guys move forward?
Because of that little guy over there. I have no choice but because of him.
For your information, Torres could get out in 12 years and 9 months with good behavior. As mentioned earlier, if he hadn't signed the plea deal and the case had gone to trial, he could have been charged with first-degree murder and sentenced to life. The Garcias will never find peace. Lauren Courtney was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 20 years. She was babysitting a child when she took her life. The judge noted the brutality of the case. Ryan Peralta suffered in his last moments.
The last minutes of that child's life were in pure horror.
Lauren Courtney learned her fate Wednesday after pleading guilty to first-degree murder.
Anybody who watches the video, quite honestly, there really aren't any words, right? What you did is unconscionable.
Courtney asked Ryan Peralta's family for forgiveness.
I wish that I could do more than just use my words to express my sorrow.
Prosecutor Michelle Job remembered Ryan.
It is very, very clear that Ryan was a happy 8-year-old child.
Then she described Courtney's actions, which ended his life.
Drags him around the house when he's vomiting. She is yelling at him, screaming at him about her. It's her bad day. It's her situation that he's upsetting her that day.
Job called a claim from Courtney's defense that she could have been sleepwalking offensively and repeatedly noted the brutality of the crime.
She then left him on the couch for approximately an hour and a half while he lay suffering and frankly because she wouldn't do anything to get him medical care.
Clark County District Court Judge Jacqueline Bluth acknowledged how emotional this sentencing is before sending Courtney to prison for life.
A 4-year-old understands every blow, every when you're screaming vitriolic hate in their face, they know what's happening to them for 26 long minutes. Ryan knew what you were doing to him.
The child's parents were not present in the courtroom due to the trauma. Job read a statement from Ryan's dad describing how his sister, who was 7 then, is trying to cope. And then, it's a sad reality that despite history's lessons, humanity often fails to learn from past mistakes. 8 years after Lily's murder and 2 years after the tragedy that struck the Adamian family, this sentiment is painfully evident.
The identity of the old boy tragically in a road rage incident over the weekend has now been released. Gore Adamian was in the backseat of a car with happened in Lancaster.
The Adamian family faced yet another tragic incident in December 2023, just a week before Christmas. While driving to the grocery store, they encountered an aggressive driver who cut them off and initiated a chase. Despite slowing down, the other car pulled up alongside theirs, and the male driver fired 8 shots. Fortunately, the police swiftly responded, aided by the city's advanced crime-fighting technology, leading to the apprehension of the suspects.
They picked up part of the plate, and once we had part of the plate, we could track it. And we tracked it to a hotel. This particular suspect was in custody a week ago for a related felony, and they had to let him go because of the new bail law.
The Adamian family's decision to relocate to a more affordable area became a source of deep regret, especially in light of the tragic shooting that occurred just 10 months later.
Shock, anger, cutting through the night in Lancaster 1 week before Christmas.
The Lancaster community came together in the area where the young boy was tragically shot, bringing candles and photos of gore to pay their respects and show support for the grieving family.
But they're almost dead in spirit, dead in soul, dead in life.
The Adamian family faced the additional burden of not being able to afford the funeral expenses for their child. However, the community rallied around them, with thousands of people showing their support through a donation account.
Christmas is just devastating. I just could not imagine. I mean, how do you even celebrate Christmas? I couldn't even think. The Christmas trees and the presents and the food, or all that is meaningless, because they don't have their child.
It's understandable that the Adamian family is seeking justice for their child, and Buckhardt's charges reflect the seriousness of the crime. His extensive criminal record further highlights the need for accountability in this case.
I wish they had them at the apprehension. Let's be clear about that. You cannot go into cities and rural children and expect anything resembling due process. And the fact that they got it was unfortunate. I'm not a big proponent of the penalty, but there are some crimes that require something more than what they're giving people, because it's getting worse.
It seems the situation has become increasingly concerning, regardless of differing perspectives. On July 16, 2011, Tyler Hadley committed the unthinkable by murdering both of his parents, Blake and Mary Jo Hadley, in Port St. Lucie, Florida. Tyler lived with his siblings and parents at the time. His descent into becoming a mass murderer began when he started skipping school and using drugs. His parents discovered his behavior and enrolled him in an outpatient drug treatment program, but unfortunately, the situation only worsened. It's tragic that Tyler felt killing his parents was the only way to avoid attending the program. Other options were available to him, like seeking help from a trusted adult or counselor, or finding alternative solutions to his problems. Unfortunately, in his distorted mindset, Tyler saw this as a solution. It's important to recognize that his actions were deeply wrong and devastating for all involved. It's chilling to think that Tyler confided in a friend about his plans and even intended to host a party on the same night. His decision to carry out such a violent act is deeply troubling. On July 16th, when his parents unexpectedly came home early, he hid their phones, took 3 ecstasy pills, and began the horrific act. While his mother was working on her computer in the living room, he attacked her with a claw hammer. The brutality of Tyler's actions is deeply disturbing. Upon hearing his mother's screams, his father rushed to help, only to meet the same fate with the murder weapon. After the horrifying act, Tyler dragged their bodies into the master bedroom and cleaned up the scene for the party. Approximately 60 people attended, and Tyler's father's credit card funded the event. At the party, he told his friend Michael Mandel about what he did. Mandel went into the room, saw the bodies, and acted normal. He even took a photo with Tyler. But right after leaving the party, he called the police on Tyler, which got him arrested.
He told me I didn't believe him because he's been my best friend forever. I would never suspect anything like this before I could see something. And that's when I went around back and put the transcript.
Since Tyler was underage, he couldn't face the death penalty under Florida law. Instead, he got sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole. When he heard the verdict, he simply nodded, got up, and was escorted out of the courtroom. China. Arnold, born on March 29, 1980 in Dayton, Ohio, was an American convicted murderer. Arnold, who had prior convictions for abduction in 2000 and forgery in 2002, was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole on September 8, 2008, for killing her daughter, Paris. Arnold took Paris to the hospital the next day, where she passed away from her injuries. Initially arrested, Arnold was released due to a lack of evidence. However, she was rearrested in November of 2006. The claim resulted in a mistrial. However, at the second trial, the mother of the boy in question established that he was not at the housing complex when Paris perished. Arnold was subsequently convicted of aggravated slaying. On November 5, 2010, the 2nd District Court of Appeals reversed Arnold's conviction, citing misconduct by prosecutors and the court's error in not allowing material witnesses to testify in Arnold's defense. On May 13, 2011, a jury found Arnold guilty of aggravated slaying. Her attorney had argued that the evidence pointed as much to Tally as it did to Arnold, but this argument was unsuccessful. Arnold has been imprisoned at the Ohio Reformatory for Women since September 11, 2008. On May 20, 2011, Arnold was sentenced to life in prison without parole. The tragic loss of Steve Markey, murdered in an attempted carjacking in Minneapolis, weighed heavily on his family as they gathered in a Hennepin County courtroom to bury their mix of anger and grief one by one.
The person who cold-bloodedly murdered my son is getting off with probation. And why? Because he's a whole new man.
The family pleaded with the judge to reject the plea deal that would have resulted in 20-year-old Hussein Braveheart receiving probation instead of nearly 22 years in prison for aiding and abetting murder.
My reaction to the plea agreement: we are witnesses to the collapse of the Hennepin County Attorney's Office.
The family loudly criticized Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriarty, tearfully calling the plea deal a disgrace to the justice system.
No, judges don't often reject negotiated pleas, but this is the negotiated plea to reject.
Moriarty's office justified the deal, citing Braveheart's lesser role in the crime and his progress in rehabilitation since the incident in 2019.
I apologize for not being a better person that day. If I could take my actions back, I would, in a heartbeat.
The judge highlighted that Braveheart not only fired shots at Markey, but also supplied the guns, casting doubt on his claimed progress while in custody. Next, we have this mother seeking child support, but there's a small hitch in her tale. She was in a relationship with someone else while pregnant with this man's child.
I don't need to hear anything else from you about this, don't you understand?
I've been with the same person since I was pregnant with his child. That's who been in his child life and been taking care of his child since day one. I have been with him in my life while I was pregnant with his child.
The more you talk, the worse it comes across. You understand? Did you ever tell Mr. Jubert that somebody else might be the father of the child?
I have never. He was
That's okay.
He
You
was
can just say yes or no, Miss Sonia.
No,
you don't have
well,
to
no,
explain it.
no.
Okay?
No, I have never said that, no.
Okay. Do you ever tell anybody else that somebody else could be the father of the child?
No.
Okay. And Mr. Jubert made an allegation against you that you've been harassing him for the last several months. Do you call him on the phone a lot?
Well, what happened was, no, I don't. I only reached out to him whenever he called me and said, and I had a text message, I'm gonna come see my son. He got the results in the mail. His dad called him or whatever. So he told me to add him on Snap. I done that. And then 2 weeks, 2 weeks passed by. I'm like, okay, he never reached out. So I reached out and I was like, I thought when you reached out, things was going to be better, for Berlin. And he was back on that, leave me alone, bro, and this is and that. And I'm like, how you go from one person to the next person?
Okay.
So that's how it was. And then he gave his, was supposed to be girlfriend, my number, and they start calling and texting my phone. And then his mom started calling and texting me. And she never had my number. He gave it to them.
Okay.
And I have everything on video recording of him reaching out, text messages, snaps. I have stuff. He said harassing his friends. He have added my friend on Snap, another friend on Instagram, 2 friends on Facebook. I have all those proof. So no, it's not harassment when he's doing the same thing. I don't call it that. I'm not petty like that. I'm a parent. So it's all about growing up and being adults.
Sonia, that's fine.
Yeah, I know, but and then like
no
his
buts,
address,
Miss Sonia. There's no
okay,
buts.
but sir, his
You
address, how y'all think?
Miss Sonia.
But how do he think he
Miss
got
Sonia,
that?
what part of I don't need to hear anything else from you about this don't you understand?
Okay.
You defended yourself just fine, Miss Sonia. But the more you
Yeah,
talk,
I just don't.
the more you talk, Miss Sonia, see, there you go again. The more you talk, the worse it comes across. You understand? You know what
Yes,
one of
sir.
the things people do when they're nervous, Miss Sonia?
Huh?
They talk a lot. Don't be nervous. Just answer my questions. That's all you got to do. Anything further from the state regarding this issue?
Nothing further, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Jobert, can you unmute for me, please, sir?
Yes, sir. No problem.
Is there anything else you think I need to know about this case before I make a ruling?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead. Tell me what you think I need to know.
To be honest, I have no problem with taking care of my child or being in my child's life. My only problem is her, and I don't even want to use the harassing because I don't like her. I don't period, but I don't. It's like it's other than my child. It's like it's as if she's using my child as a tool. Like if she can't be with me, then like she tries any way to ruin my life. This woman, sir, has reached out to my parole officer, to people in my family that I haven't spoke to in years.
Okay.
It's not only embarrassing, it's disrespectful. And the way that she talks, I just as well as she says she has things on record. I'm not gonna make this long. I'm gonna sum it all up. When I reached out to her and said, "Hey, I got the test results in the mail. I'm gonna come see him." You know, that was me being a bigger person, going beyond her harassing me or trying to be in a relationship with me, because me and her was never in a relationship at all, sir.
Okay.
But when we spoke on the phone afterwards, it was going totally fine until she said that we was gonna have another baby and we should be together, and she never done me anything wrong. It's like everything besides my child, and she tried to harm me in different type of ways, sir.
Okay.
That's why I fear. I have until January to get off parole. I'm just trying to rebuild my life and take care of my responsibilities.
Okay. Okay. Miss Sonia, is there anything else you think I need to know about this case before I make a ruling?
Yes, sir. That was
Go
never
ahead.
true. That was all lies. Every time
After hearing from both sides, the judge renders a verdict.
I don't think it was all lies, Miss Sonia. And don't make comments. Don't make comments or judgments, Miss Sonia, about something that somebody else says. Just make comments about what you think. All right.
Okay. Well, no. Every time we have stopped talking, he have always been a person to come back and reach out, and I have messages. So he would say, why you don't love me like I love you and stuff like that. Like it'd be stuff like that. Or we never told each other we was together. We just used to always, he used to be like, come get me, come get me, come get me. So I go get him. I was single, so I was doing me, so go get him. Why not? If you want to chill, let's chill. That's how he was. When he reached out, no, I never did reach out again until 2 weeks later. It was never, ever about me and him being together. I have not tried to be with him. If he asked or talked about it, we'll talk about it, but it was never none of that.
Okay.
Because I've been with the same person since I was pregnant with his child. And that's who been in his child life and been taking care of his child since day one. So every time I reached out, he would always be like, I don't think we could ever be together again. I can play the recording if I wanted to. And I was like, it's not about that. It's
I
about
don't need to hear it, Miss Sonia. I'm just trying to give you.
I know, but it's about Braylon. But no, it was never about trying to be with him, none of that, because I had been moved on in my life while I was pregnant with his child. So
okay. Anything further from the state?
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Court's going to find the court has jurisdiction. Oh, Miss Sonia, do you live in Jefferson County?
No, I don't.
Where do you live? What county?
I'm in Harris.
And how long you been in Harris County?
Since July.
Since July?
They knew that. They said that they were just going to proceed and then transfer it afterwards.
Okay.
But I'm not going to be here. January, we're moving to Seattle. So.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
all right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and make a court order. And of course, going to find the court has jurisdiction. Of course, going to find. Well, you were in Jefferson County though when the lawsuit was filed. Is that right, Ms. Sonia?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
that's good. That's good. The court's going to. Well, let me look at something else. Let's see. I think we did this the different way. Sole managed conservator of the child, Mr. Jobert, will be a possessory conservator of the child. Mr. Jobert is going to have visitation at any and all times the parties can mutually agree. If no mutual agreement, then the parties will have, Mr. Jobert will have a phased-in visitation schedule with 12 visits at each phase. It's a very young child, and Mr. Jobert, without blaming anybody, hasn't had any contact with the child. So that relationship has to be established. There'll be no domicile restriction in this case, Mr. Schlett, since nobody lives in this county.
I thank you both for being here today. Thank you for your patience. This took a little while longer than what it should have. But I do appreciate your patience.
Big thanks to our viewers for joining the courtroom journey with us. Your interest in the stories of justice is what keeps our channel alive.